Hello. Thank you for listening in, and today I'm here to answer all of your questions about anything to do with gardening or anything to do with plants. See if you can find something I don't know. And I've got a fair bit of experience. I went and got my first gardening job when I was 7, and I've been doing various gardening and nursery work and horticultural work in various places right around the world for 62 years since. So I've got quite a bit of experience, and what I was going to do was, just while you're getting on board and wondering what to ask me, I was going to talk a little bit about garden design. I do probably 20 or 30 garden designs every week, and where people go with garden design is that they start at the wrong point. They sort of think, what will I plant where? And where I start on a garden design, and I think this could be helpful to people, is I start off by looking at a property and looking at the area that needs to be gardened, and I'll work out I do it like an accountant. I sort of say, well, the assets are that this is a really lovely big front yard, or that it's got a beautiful view, and then I'll list all of the assets. There's a beautiful tree that needs to be preserved there. Whatever the assets are, then I look at the liabilities. And the liabilities could be some really ugly thing like an air conditioner sticking out in the wrong spot, or the pipes and things coming in, or some ugly big house towering over next door, whatever they are. And so I look at the assets, I look at the liabilities, then I talk to the customer and I say, what do you want? What's the key thing? What do you really want? They say they want low maintenance, or they say they want it really good street appeal, or whatever, lots of colour. And I take that in, and then I look at the house, and I look at the property, and I let the property talk to me. And most properties will tell you, they'll say, look, I want a cottage garden, or I want something really modern and sleek, so I let the property talk to me, and then from there I'll start to choose. And I haven't thought about anything of what to put in. I'm not thinking about what to put in or what to put where or how it's all going to work. I think that's something that if you could do these other things first, that all comes very, very easily. So then I'll tend to look at a garden style, like, is it modern, is it cottagey, is it Japanesey? I choose my style, and then from there I'll choose some plants, and I call that my palette. So I'll choose a palette that I can I can put the garden together with, and that'll be different sorts of plants that I think will work in that particular style in that particular garden. And then from there I start doing my design. So that's where most people start. They sort of look at a garden and think, what will I put here? And they'll say, I'll put this over here, put that over there. And I've already done a whole series of things. I've done the assets and liabilities, the little accountancy job. I've talked to the customer, found out not so much what they think you should put there, but more what their desire or their outcome is. And then I've let the house have a little word with me. I let the house talk to me, and then I've chosen a style, and then I've worked out my palette, and only then do I start working out what I put where, and that's the execution. And so they're my basics that I run through with every garden design, and it's something that if you took that on, you could very easily do. So now, if you've got some questions, put them in the comment section. If you've got some questions, put them in the comment section, and we'll answer them today. So what I'm looking for is, I'm looking to solve whatever your garden, and I don't care what it is it a disease in the lemon tree, a design problem, a weed problem, a bug problem, whatever it is. Put your comment in the questions in the comment section, and we'll answer your question right now today. And actually, it's interesting. The last garden design I was working on, which was just a few minutes ago, what came up was garden edging. This particular garden had a lot of it was about 30 odd metres of garden edging to go in. And these days people think that they have to do a steel garden edge or a wooden garden edge. And often what happens, putting that steel garden edge or that wooden garden edge in, or whatever, concrete garden edge, brick garden edge, all these garden edges can really eat into your budget. And really what looks when was the last time when you went, wow, look at that garden, look at those garden edges? It's not it's the plants in the garden. So if you've got a limited budget and you're looking to have a beautiful garden on a limited budget, don't waste your money on garden edges. All you need to do is go down to the botanical gardens and have a look at the garden edges there. And what you'll see is you'll see grass and then a neatly cut earth edge where they go around, they cut it with a roller or a sharp spade every few months. And that garden edge, my parents had 5 acres of garden, and we had to go around and cut it every few months. We'd go around and cut it with a spade or a roller, and that edge cost them next to nothing, other than putting their kids to work. It cost them next to nothing and lasted for many, many years, whereas your timber edge or your steel edge is only going to rot away, get caught in the lawnmower, but worst of all, it's going to cost you a fortune and may limit the money you have to spend on the important parts of the garden, which could be the turf or the plants, because they're the things that are going to make people go, wow, it's not the garden edge. So if you're doing a garden on a budget, really consider using a botanic, let's call it a cut garden edge or a botanic garden style garden edge. You'll save a fortune and it'll last forever.
Hi everyone, so I'm going to be reading out your questions for Chris to answer, and we got one here from Simon. He asks, can you please tell me if Dodonia Mr. Green Sheen leaves remain lime green, because he's read somewhere that they turn green to purple. So are they remaining that lime green, Chris, or are they going to turn more purpley?
They stay, I wouldn't quite call it a lime green, but it's a very nice bright green, and they keep that green all the time. And what I'd say is that the person who told him that got it confused with the Dodonia purpurea, which purpurea sort of ranges between certain times of the year it'll be kind of a deep green, and other times of the year, like in the middle of winter, it'll almost be a blacky purple. So it does various colours through the year, and that's Dodonia purpurea. But the main difference between the Dodonia Mr. Greensheen and the Dodonia purpurea is that the Dodonia Mr. Greensheen is a much more compact and denser green, and so you use it to, like if you really want to block something out, that Dodonia Mr. Greensheen is a very tough, fast growing but really dense, nice screen.
Great. And we've got another question here from Belinda, who asks, so the Tom Thumb and the Green Rock are slightly different. So the Tom Thumb is a dwarf cultivar. Sorry everyone, so if you have any questions, just leave it down in the comments below.
Yeah, so what you...
Oh, here we go, it's advice on the...
Yep, sorry, so Belinda was just asking for some advice on the Tom Thumb plant, whether it's the same as the Green Rocket or if it's a different plant.
Okay, Tom Thumb is a smaller, denser, tighter growing version of the same sort of plant as Green Rocket. Green Rocket has a larger leaf, coarser. It's a coarser plant, and it grows taller and grows faster. Now where I love those two particular plants is that like I remember I had a dentist come to me one time, and he'd planted 600 English box in his garden, and half of them had died, and he wanted replacements for them. And I said, and he was in an area that was a little bit salty, very, very hot and difficult. And I said to him, I said, look, don't replace them, because you'll be back next year and we'll be doing the same thing again. I said, let's get rid of the whole lot and replace them with Green Rocket. Well, I've been in contact with him ever since, and that was like 8 or 9 years ago. He's bought lots of plants from me, and his Green Rocket hedge is absolutely fantastic. He's barely had to replace a single one in the same conditions where the English box died. So I tend to use Green Rocket or Tom Thumb where it's a bit tough for an English box, and they're a beautiful glossy foliage. And when the person wants a really low hedge, say they want it 35 centimetres or less, I'll tend to use Tom Thumb. And where they want something a little bit taller, maybe 50, 60 centimetres tall, up to say 1.2 or 1.3 metres tall, I'll use the Green Rocket, because it'll get there quicker and it'll be happier as a taller hedge.
Great.
So green rocket for your bigger hedge, and Tom Thumb or green rocket. If you've had trouble with English box or you've had trouble with other low hedges, you'll find that Tom Thumb or green rocket, they'll take poor soil, they'll take drought, they'll take frost, they'll take heat, they'll take everything, and come out trumps.
Perfect. And we've got a question here from Jessie May asking, do we have any iceberg rose standards in stock?
Yes, we do. Actually, we've got them. I shouldn't be advertising here at the moment, but we've got standard icebergs starting at $15, and they're 2 foot tall. And you've got 3 footers there for $29.99, and we've got truckloads of them because it's the bare rooted season. That's when you have big bundles of them in store.
Perfect. And here is a question from Ash asking, is the Lavandula Silverado lavender 6-inch pot the same as the Silver Princess lavender? And if not, do we have it?
I think we can. I don't think we. I have one or the other in stock. There is a lovely silver one out there right now, and they're different cultivars, but they're very similar. They both have that brilliant silver foliage, and we'll check and make sure what we've got in stock and let you know. But I'm sure we can supply either one at the moment.
Great. And here is a question from Jivan. What tree can be planted at the corner of 2 walls intersecting at 90 degrees? Would love to have some nice foliage, less invasive roots, and not too tall.
Well, it depends. I'd love to know a little bit more. Like, what colour is the wall behind? And is it sunny or shady? They're the 2 main questions. But let's imagine it's a sort of a deeper brick, and it's only sunny for a part of the day. I think a Senkaki maple would be fabulous because Senkaki maples have beautiful bright red stems in the winter. They have lovely red stems with sort of soft green foliage through the spring and summer, and then in autumn they've just got a sort of a symphony of colours where you get golds and pinks and all different colours, and with a little snip you could keep your Senkaki only 2.5 metres tall forever.
Perfect. So that's a Senkaki maple for you, Jivan. Also, we love details. So if you can provide as much details about your problem as possible, and then Chris can give you a really specialised, personalised response. So on to the next question from SK Reddy. Asking, so they purchased some red robins from us a few years ago, and they have not grown much, maybe about 5 to 10 centimetres in about 2.5 years. So there must be some kind of issue here. They are saying that the area is regularly watered and fertilised, the soil is in fairly good shape. So they just really want some advice on what may be going wrong with their red robins.
Red robin would have a growth capacity of well over 1 metre a year. And what I would do is I would cultivate around them, and I'd cultivate a good distance around them, at least 50 or 60 centimetres away from the base. So I'd have it cultivated and weed free. I would then, the favourite fertiliser, if you can buy some, sometimes you see it for sale in petrol stations, but chicken manure, they go crazy with chicken manure, but really any fertiliser, even an Osmocote could be good. But regular doses of good heavy doses of fertiliser, and then as soon as the weather warms up, absolutely drown them once a week, and you should be able to get 1 metre on them, at least 1 metre. With those things, cultivation, fertiliser and water, you should be able to get at least 1 metre a year on them until you get up to the height that you want. Then you can back off, and because otherwise if you water and fertilise them like crazy, once you get up the height you want, you just end up with lots of trimming to do. So you can back right off, and they'll live almost off the natural rainfall once you've achieved the height that you want.
So keep us updated on that situation, SK Ready. Let us know whether that works for you. Moving back to Jivan, we just want to quickly note, so he did give us some more details. I think you actually guessed that quite correctly. He said that his corner there with the 2 walls has red brick with nice sunshine. Is that Senkaki maple still going to be your answer?
Yeah.
Great.
Terrific answer, yeah.
Perfect. So then we'll move on to Swati's question. So they say, I want to put Magnolias in our new house in January, but they're expensive to buy 6 to 7. What's the best way to stay in budget with landscaping while still being able to afford buying multiple of the Magnolias?
Yeah, it depends which magnolia you want, but the one that everybody goes for is teddy bear, and if anybody's selling a cheap teddy bear, it's probably a fake. There's no such thing as a cheap teddy bear. But I reckon that you can go for a little gem, and a little gem, has much more flowers than a teddy bear, has beautiful foliage with the same sort of brown backing on it, but much better flower, lovely shape, lovely luscious leafy plant, and they start in our store at $24.99 at they're about 60 centimetres tall. So 60 centimetres tall, $24.99, and well over a metre at $59.99. So that way, I think by choosing the right one, and then even then, if you're really after a bargain, we've got the fairy magnolia at the moment on special for $14.99 at nearly a metre in height. So I think the answer is don't get too fixated on one particular magnolia. I mean, the fairy, little gem, all fabulous magnolias. If you hunt around, there's some really good specials around on magnolias, and I think there's another one we've got at the moment that's well over a metre for $35. So shop around and be. I think if you be flexible and look at more what the nurseryman's selling for a good price rather than fixate on a particular variety.
Great answer, Chris. So next question for you is, what is a good evergreen pleached hedge?
That's a hard question. If I was in a hot sunny spot, and something you almost never see pleached is your weeping lily pilly. Your weeping lily pilly, and what it is that at the moment there's a beetle going around eating a lot of the lily pillies around Melbourne and takes all the foliage off. And the great thing is that particular beetle just doesn't like the weeping lily pilly, and I love the weeping lily pilly. It's a beautiful looking tree, and so if you have you can buy that with a nice straight. If you specify when you're buying it that you want a nice straight stem, you can get it with a nice straight stem, And so weeping lily pilly, now a lot of people that are coming to me for pleaching have got shady, like they're in an area with townhouses and big tall buildings, and they've got a lot of shade to deal with. And so if I've got shade and poor soil, I tend to go with a bay tree, because a bay tree will take shade and take quite poor soil. If I've got better soil, I'd be tempted to use a Portuguese laurel. And as long as it's not too close to the house, there's not a problem with roots there, you find that your ficus makes a beautiful pleached hedge. And possibly, if you wanted just an absolutely wonderful pleached hedge, the old-fashioned ficus that everybody used to grow years ago, and we still have them here occasionally, is your Ficus hilli, and that has a beautiful white trunk and a beautiful fine, slightly weeping foliage, and that's a great one for pleaching. So hot, sunny conditions, bit of room for the roots and things like that, your Ficus hilli, shady Portuguese laurel or bay tree, and probably my favourite and very versatile and really lasts a long time is your weeping lily pilly.
Awesome. We do have a follow-up question here from Swati, who was talking about magnolias on a budget. Swati just wants to know which magnolias are easiest to maintain.
I think Little Gem. I can't remember the last time somebody came to me and said, look, my Little Gem's not growing or it died or whatever. Whereas, you when you sell tens of thousands of plants like we do, you're always hearing that this died or that died. But like in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, we've sold thousands upon thousands of Little Gems, and I would say that they are probably one of the easiest and most reliable magnolias around.
And will that still be keeping within her budget?
Well, yes. If you don't go, like you've got Little Gems starting at $24.99 and over a metre tall, you've got them at $59.99. So really, they should be okay in the budget.
Great. And we got a question here from Aline asking for some advice for someone who wants to start a public garden on 20 acres in hot country. What are some of the plants that they should be putting in that 20-acre property?
I guess I'd be starting off with some trees. Like in hot country, you're going to need some windbreak, and you're going to need some shade and some shelter for other things. So I'd be starting off with trees, and I'd be looking at trees that were beautiful but really, really hardy. And you could look at some native trees, but also you could look at things like Japanese elm would be really nice. The sensation maple is beautiful these are all trees that are great in hot country, hot dry country. And then And then I guess you'd start to look at some hedges, and you might look at some native hedges like I've seen some beautiful hedges of Westringia, like your coastal Westringia, and so if you started off with some hedges with like your coastal Westringia, you looked at some really nice deciduous trees, and with the deciduous trees you could plant them in clumps, and don't make the mistake of allowing the grass to go right up around the base. They're much easier to maintain, and the trees are much happier and faster growing if they've got a good area of mulch or cultivation around them.
Great. And also, if you wanted to provide any more details, Aline, about specifically what you were looking for in your public garden, feel free to do so. So we're moving from the heat to now some frost. Which hedging plants are frost hardy?
Right, okay. One of my favourite TV shows is Escape to the Country, and they go all over England looking at country properties, and the evergreen that I see most often on there is your cherry laurel. And I grow cherry laurel for the customers that are sort of out back of where we are up in the Macedon Ranges, where frost can be quite severe. And I think that cherry laurel would be number one. But counting back from cherry laurel, you've got your Portuguese laurel, you've got your bay tree, and then you've got your Photinia, and then you've got your sweet viburnum. And all of those will grow in the Macedon Ranges and take the frost really, really well. And then if you're looking at a low hedge, you'd be looking at your English box, and as we mentioned earlier, your Tom Thumb and your Green Rocket are really great in those frosty areas.
Awesome. So don't forget to comment down any questions you have, any problems you've had in your garden. If you are quickly taking notes as Chris speaks, don't worry. We do post this and it's evergreen on our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel, so you can go back and you can rewatch it over and over again. Here we do have a question about what's kind of the standard time on our delivery rates. How long does it normally take on average for their orders to get delivered?
Customers coming in and buying off the floor will get it within a couple of days to a week, depending on because we deliver right out to Bendigo and places like that, and we go out there only once a week. It can take 10 days to 2 weeks if you order some product that say comes from northern New South Wales or Queensland, and then we have to take it out to Traralgon. You'd allow about 2 weeks for something like that. So really anywhere from there'd be lots of people getting a delivery today who ordered stuff on the weekend that was off the floor, and then if you lived in Traralgon and you ordered something from Queensland that comes from Queensland, you're looking at about 2 weeks.
So quite a speedy process. Now let's say you are just starting out with your garden. When would you say is the best time to begin planting?
Well, it's interesting. I went to a nursery in Texas one time and they didn't have a single plant in there. And I was talking to them and they said, well, look, we're only open in springtime because, like in summer it's too hot and in winter it's too cold. This is in North Texas. And so around the world, people in most countries like the ground to be frozen or be roasting hot at a different time. But Melbourne is an amazing place because in Melbourne, we grow an incredibly wide range of plants. We grow tropical plants right next to alpine plants, and we can plant pretty much 365 days a year. My favourite time for planting most plants is late summer and autumn, but really in Melbourne, it's one of the few places in the world where 365 days a year you can plant plants, because Melbourne isn't that hot. You have a couple of crazy hot days, but it's not that hot in summer and it's not that cold in winter. So 365 days a year, and it's good for the nurseryman because we tend to keep busy all year round and people keep planting all year round.
So don't fall into the trap of just planting in springtime, basically.
No, like right now is a great time, and also at certain times of the year you'll find that certain things, like right at the moment, bare-rooted roses are cheaper than buying potted roses, and you've got the whole bare-rooted season of all trees and various bare-rooted things coming up. So different things become bargains, or the buying time comes at a certain time, and Melbourne you can plant 365 days a year, almost anything.
Great to live in Melbourne. We got a question here from Stephen saying, hey Chris, hope you're well. Can I do tomato cuttings if I kept them in prop mix in a small greenhouse?
Yes, you can. And if you were doing it this time, you'd want to keep them pretty warm. Almost put a light on them, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Now, capital ornamental pears trees are known for their gorgeous autumn red colour. If you're finding that your leaves are falling off quite quickly before you're getting that red autumn colour, can you think of any solutions for that or why that could be happening?
Yeah, well, premature leaf fall is caused by stress. Now we've had, I think we had, it's rained a bit the last couple of weeks, but the sort of January, I think we basically had a funny season this year. It was basically spring until the middle of January. It just rained and was warm and beautiful and then we had I think one of the driest periods we've ever had in history, from that mid-January up until a couple of weeks ago, and like I had silver birches at home dropping their leaves months early, and I rushed out there and gave them a really good deep soak, and so basically dropping without colour early would be an indication of stress, normally dryness stress.
Great, so the way to fix that is watering it?
Yeah, watering, and like what I did there is I used a bit of soil wetter to help get the water in, and then I used a soaker hose and put it on slow overnight, and got the water down deep, and my birch, this was actually, I didn't realise how dry the birches were getting, but my birches were leaf dropping in mid-March, and they've actually put on another crop of leaves since from the deep water.
Does anyone else have similar struggles with their plants? They're looking not too great, not as lackluster as they normally should. If there are any problems that you're having in your garden, whether it is issues with the plants or maybe you just want to have kind of a specific design choice, just comment it down below and Chris can answer it for you.
Yeah, actually I saw lots of, as I was doing deliveries and working around Melbourne in late March, I saw more leaf drop than I've ever seen before in late March.
Interesting. Yes, the Melbourne weather is quite strange. Aline just has a little bit more information to provide. So just a recap on that. Aline was asking about starting a public garden on 20 acres in hot country. So they are picturing a beautiful garden with trees, colourful flowers and roses. It's a wedding venue. Okay, does this change what you were saying before about the trees and the hedges?
I think wedding venue to add some grandeur. You couldn't go wrong with getting some beautiful trees in. I'd imagine one of the most fabulous, I once had the gentleman who shop with me regularly, owned quite a bit of country property, and one day, he always used to buy English box off me, and he came in one year and I gave him a tray of box leaf privet, and the next year he came back and said, look, he said, you know them things you gave me last year? He said, give me 3,000 of them. And anyway, he went off with 3,000 of those box leaf privets, and I visited his property a couple of years later, and it absolutely transformed his property. He had hundreds of metres of beautiful dark green 1 metre tall hedges, and his property looked a million, and heaps of iceberg roses, and his property just looked $1 million, looked absolutely fantastic, and he planted 3,000. So box leaf privet you can grow. If I was doing a wedding venue, I'd be using carpet roses because they flower for a really long time. I'd be using box leaf privet, and because you can grow a 1 metre tall box style hedge that's as tough as anything, you grow a 1 metre box style hedge in 1 year. And then I'd be looking at fast growing deciduous trees, and the time to buy fast growing deciduous trees, if you need volumes of them, is the winter time, because in the winter you'll find that some of the potted stock's quite cheap, and you've got your bare rooted stuff, and so you really get some very, very big trees really quite cheaply during the winter. So that's the time to be planting that, and I think your real colour, and that's what people in a wedding venue are looking for, comes from your deciduous and your exotic trees. So deciduous and exotic trees, box leaf privet hedging, and the roses are carpet roses, and with that you could really you could make something that looked pretty good in 12 months using those things.
Well, we're very excited to see that, Aline. If you do take on some of the advice of Chris, we'd love to see photos of that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? We are going to start wrapping up this live, so if you have any pressing problems, any things that you just can't quite figure out why your plant is not looking as beautiful as it's normally meant to look, Aline just wants to know, mind typing the plants. Aline, we will be posting this, and yes, we are more than happy to respond to this comment after the live, and we'll just type out the plants that Chris mentioned. So no worries about that. So yeah, we'll just give a couple minutes now for anyone to post their last minute comments, questions, queries. We do these Facebook Lives. Well, actually, we're now on a lot of platforms. We do these lives quite regularly. We've got some exciting ones coming up this week. If you keep an eye on our socials, you will see what topics we'll be covering. And yeah, if anyone else... yeah, I would love to have you come, Stephen. That'd be amazing. Great. Well, if that's... yeah, great. So that is pretty much all we have for you today. We are going to be doing this again next Monday, so don't worry if you do come across any problems in your garden that you didn't know about now. We're going to be doing this again next week. And yeah, happy Monday, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.